In the name of God, the most gracious, the most beneficent, excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished audience, I would like to welcome you to this panel discussion, which is conducted about the road to Riyadh, preparing for the hosting of the Kingdom of Serbia, the UN Conference for Data in Riyadh. This panel discussion is to be conducted in line with the International Environment Day, which is an occasion emphasizing the role played by data to better understand the environmental challenges, supporting decisions, policies, aiming at improving sustainability, environmental sustainability. This goes in line with a very important significance, which of course brings together an international event more relating to environmental sustainability and international platform relating to the future of data, emphasizing the pivotal role played by data to support environmental decisions and achieve environmental sustainability. Today we'll be talking about data for sustainable future, which reflects a reality, clear-cut reality, which is about that the quality of decisions, environmental decisions, is based on the quality of data and how much we can, of course, employ such data more efficiently. The challenge is not just to provide such data, rather to how to develop methodologies and enhance reliability, and also to link it directly with the decision-making processes. We are honored and excited to have a wealth of experts and specialist Mrs. Golston Rodwan, Chief Digital Officer at UNEP, and Dr. Bahjat bin Talat Hamwa, Executive VP NCVC, and His Excellency Dr. Abdullah Athnayan, General Supervisor for Environmental and Spatial Statistics at GSTAT, and Dr. Mubarak Al-Rashidi, Director General of Environmental Quality at MIWA, and Mr. Ian Townsend, Deputy Director, Environmental Economy UK Office for National Statistics. We're looking for wealthy discussions which will contribute to enhancing the role of data to building a more sustainable future. I would like to start from the global perspective from Mrs. Golston, from the UNEP perspective. Globally, what are the most important methodological gaps that are still there, limiting the ability of the countries to produce consistent environmental data? And again, how is it possible for the global organization to support digitalization of the national statistical system in such a way, in a better way, and to have like better digital platforms to bridge the gap or such gaps? Please, the floor is yours. Thank you so much for this question, and I would like to highly express my appreciation for the government of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and the General Authority for Statistics for conducting such important discussion. Well, the UNEP program, we see 5 gaps covering all the environmental data quantity, of course, including statistics. The first one is the institutional coordination data. Are not just one, because they go across different national statistics offices, meteorological and aerospace, and also scientific research and the private sector. Even the methodology is there at the national level, but the system of the data production can be fragmented. So with this mind, of course, the global support doesn't need to be only for the indicators, but also should include supporting the countries to governance of the environmental data at the national level. Anyone producing data to be ensured about the data and how they can be included in the official statistics without, of course, violating the national sovereignty. And the second gap is related to the metadata, as we call it, and also to better understand the source of metadata. So many countries have data, but they don't have sufficient information about how we can address and handle such kind of data, and we ensure the source of that data. So there will be always a problem about comparing and benchmarking such data with other source of data, or use them in public policy. The third gap is we are living in a world where we have different environmental issues, so much complicated and complex, impacting and get impacted, of course, with different or by different issues. And environmental data by nature, spatial, and are changing. We are speaking about the air pollution, water pollution, and also the traditional data are not sufficient. So the countries need always to bring together the geographical and the spatial data, environmental data, and meteorological data, and metadata, and also remote sensing data, and also data coming from citizens. So the source of data, the new ones, need clear-cut methodologies in order to be calibrated and to ensure uncertainty, and also the national ownership and also the official acceptance. Otherwise, it means that we are going through a hard time, and the status will be very poor. The fourth gap is to link the data with the decision-making processes, even the social and the economic decisions, not just the environmental decisions, such as, for example, economical, environmental data, the social data are very important to be linked because they provide different definitions, different classifications, and different structures. But so many countries are still need these data or these frameworks to be further developed, more consistent, more structured, for the global organizations that can help, of course, in this. The fifth gap is, of course, capabilities or capacity building, whether financial or human resources, or even technical capacities and capabilities. Some countries face different restrictions, such as, for example, lack or poor capacity infrastructure, for example, licensing, cloud, computer clouding, high quality, high precision data, and even the ability to maintain data, or even data scientists, even they are there in such a country. So methodology is not sufficient unless otherwise such countries can apply. The global organization would help and can play better roles by closely coordinating about the national systems, reducing duplication based on the reports and also based on the report agreements, and also providing open data tools, and also supporting the metadata, and also investing in capacity building that is sustainable rather than just depending on siloed workshops. And not being linked with one structured framework, which, of course, this is what we are doing at the UNEP, implementing through the global strategy for the environmental data, which was launched in December last year. Thank you. Thank you so much, Mrs. Goldston. Moving ahead to a leading experience that has been very successful in translating this into applicable applications. Mr. Ian Townsend, Deputy Director, Environmental Economy UK Office for National Statistics, based on the experience and experience of the Kingdom of the United Kingdom, and which is based on economic environment. Siam, what are the most important learned lessons when it comes to translating data, environmental data, to something that is very useful and also linked to the policies? Please, the floor is yours.
Not familiar. The UN System for Environmental Economic Accounting, or SEEA, is an internationally agreed framework that we use for our statistics. It sits alongside the UN System of National Accounts, which provides us with some of the key measures of the economy, like gross domestic product. And that's quite complex. It has two main parts. One is the central framework, which focuses on what the economy does for and to the environment, so energy, fisheries and forest assets, and also air and waste emissions, for example. And a complementary and also a little newer ecosystem accounting framework, which looks at how ecosystem services that nature provides us in the economy, and also how we go about measuring, economically valuing those. I think we in the UK have perhaps been seen as something of a leader on implementing these accounts, but it's really great to see more and more countries producing them. I think there's a 2025 survey from the UN which found that nearly 100 countries are now implementing SEEA in some way. Certainly this work started long before I joined the National Statistics Office in the UK, but we're I think I can pull out a few key points from my 6 years working on this. One is that context is really important. So we have a decentralized statistics system, which makes collaboration and partnership absolutely critical. We depend on a really wide array of data to create these accounts. So I think our natural capital accounts, for example, have at least 70 sources from providers, including government, but also other public bodies and charities as well. So keeping up to date on developments with their methods and their improvements to how they create those sources and how they change them over time is really quite a task. Also, our environmental goods and services sector statistics cover 17 separate subsectors, and we rely on more than 25 data sources for those, coming again from numerous providers. And that often relies on us looking at proxy data and so forth, where we don't have exactly the data we're looking for. But in our latest environmental accounts, which will happen to be published this morning, we've implemented new approaches for measuring environmental construction, renewable energy production and insulation activities, all important sectors for an evolving UK economy and also getting us closer to the SEER framework guidance. This work is part of a general push for us to get to a higher quality level for all of our SEER statistics, what we call in the UK official statistics status. This does involve a great deal of work, so we need to really develop those methods collaboratively. So nationally, the ONS, the Office for National Statistics, has an academic research partnership called the Economic Statistics Centre of Excellence, experts we've worked with quite closely to develop methods, including recently for a potential new freshwater account for the UK, which would be brand new, something we've not done before. And internationally, we're part of some really useful groups, such as the UN Committee of Experts on Environmental Economic Accounting, which is a place where we can share our approaches and also learn from others about how they have gone about addressing challenges. And one other thing, perhaps a bit less around methods as such, but the SEER accounts are quite complex, as I've said, and can be quite technical. So we've invested a great deal of time and thought into how we can communicate those accounts as clearly and engagingly as we can. So the release I mentioned this morning, the environmental accounts, we've retooled that, restructured it to kind of speak to a broader audience, to make it a bit more human, if you like. We've had some great support from our data visualization and website colleagues to do that. And we're always making sure that we still have ways to communicate some of the key points to more technical audiences, for example, in government. And I think looking ahead, we're going to be facing some new challenges, some interesting new challenges in implementing a review of that central framework of SEER that I mentioned. And a second set of draft guidance notes is being launched any minute now, around now, for global consultation. And one of the areas that we'll be looking at is consistency with the new system of national accounts update last year, and particularly looking at a new measure of natural resources depletion, which is something that our team will be looking at in the years ahead. And I know a lot of other national statistics institutes are as well. But for a number of countries where that's happening, where they don't necessarily have a big team producing SEER accounts, it's going to be quite a challenge, I think, for people that work on national accounts to kind of bridge into this. So there's definitely a community of expertise out there that can be tapped into. Hopefully that's helpful in response to your question. Thank you.
Thank you very much. شكرا لك الأستاذ إيان تاونسند. لعل ذلك يقودنا إلى الدور المحوري للمكاتب الإحصائية.
Moving ahead to the national statistical offices in order to enhance such methodology and make them sustainable. Moving ahead to His Excellency Dr. Abdullah Athnayan. Dr. Abdullah Athnayan, General Supervisor for Environmental and Spatial Statistics. What is the most important role for the National Statistical Office to build a sustainable environmental reporting system to benefit, of course, the national and also the international commitment at the same time? Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for this question, which is very important, particularly when it comes to the different data production entities at the national level, and also the different formats and the different formats of data being produced. There is a pivotal role to be played by the national statistical offices to be a reference entity to translate such data to knowledge that is reliable, that can be benchmarked and can be also used for environmental policies and decision making, which requires one important thing where the national offices, of course, should also align the methodologies and the frameworks adopted with the international standards and also to standardize the concepts and terms in such a way to build a fully integrated ecosystem at the national level. which is, at the end of the day, provides, of course, reliable statistics, which are very important in order to manage environmental resources and sustainable environmental sustainability. Thank you so much, Doctor. The real value lies perhaps in how we use such data in decision-making processes. We have Dr. Mubarak Al-Rashidi, Dr. Mubarak Al-Rashidi, Director General of Environmental Quality at MIWA. From the perspective of policy making, what are the types of statistical data that are very important to have like better, efficient or more efficient environmental policies, and how do you see the focus to be placed? Thank you so much for this panel discussion. We can go to the General Statistical Authority. Of course, environmental indicators and data represent very important bedrock, which does not measure the performance, but also helps making progress and also the impact of such policies and the environmental initiative. What is important is that the indicators should be linked with the national priorities and the environmental needs for each and every country. Here in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, at the national level, of course, we see the importance, special importance for the indicator linked to the land degradation, desert and drought, while other countries, for example, have their own needs or interest in this side, of course. Also for the speak of the environmental adaptability, of course, developing the data and indicators to be more holistic in order to follow up the sustainable initiative and supporting, of course, in such a way, support the efforts relating to events. As for the high quality environmental data have become very important for the environmental decision makers at the national level, of course. The highly accurate data helps in planning, directing investment, and also the environmental policies direction. Equally important, the government of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is making a lot of efforts and also contributing to the national, international policies, and also developing the international and environmental strategies, of course, by the UNEP. Thank you so much, Doctor. After designing policies, data become very important when it comes to the application in reality by the different environmental initiatives. Dr. Bahjat Hamwa, the Executive VP and CVC, when we speak about enhancing vegetation cover and the land degradation, what is the role played by the environmental data of high quality when it comes to prioritizing actions and also directing and also measuring the impact on long term, particularly when it comes to the Saudi Green Initiative? The floor is yours, Doctor. Thank you so much. In the name of God, the most gracious, the most beneficent, peace be upon you all, and good afternoon. We'd like to welcome everyone. Big thanks go to the GSTAT for conducting this panel discussion. Well, in fact, data are the bedrock at the NCVC, and by the spatial data and remote sensing data and the satellite imaging, we can identify the vegetation cover, which gives indication with different areas, and through which, of course, we can identify priorities, of course, for the initiatives and programs or projects. Equally important, we can identify the most appropriate areas for rehabilitation, for example, to identify location or sites for tree planting, or appropriate, for example, for reseeding, and which, of course, also identify the areas which are very important or appropriate for seeding, rain seeding, or the critical areas, for example, sandy dunes, and which also helps, data also help greatly to follow up the vegetation cover and identify the performance of the vegetation cover in different regions in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Again, these data are reliable in addition to the field tests and to rehabilitate the vegetation cover, by which, of course, greatly contribute to achieving the Saudi Green Initiative targets, and also the sensitivity of the vegetation cover, through which, of course, we have announced already to to rehabilitate 1 million hectare in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and also to ensure the accuracy of such data in field, of course, in addition to the digital reliability and confirmation. Thank you so much, Doctor. I would like to speak about balance between innovation and credibility in this fast-track progress. Mrs. Sally, with the increasing growing demand for more environmental data, more accurate and more detailed, how is it possible for the global community to strike a balance between innovation and maintaining the quality of data and being applicable, of course, and also for trust across the different countries? Please, the floor is yours. This is a very important question, because I believe that we don't have to look into the issue as like a trade-off between innovation and balance. There should be a clear cut between innovation for quality purposes, as you've said, that countries need increasing growing, like more updated data, a more detailed data. So it is very important all the data resources should contribute to this, of course, to achieving this. If we take, for example, the air quality in real-time data, the vegetation cover, and methane and other gases, of course, even in the AI. And it can, of course, also produce the remote sensing. The mobile phones also can have different sources of data. But again, it is very important to deal with these data sources as a part and not like alternative for the official data providers. So the key principle here is that let's use new data sources, and which is part of innovation. But again, it is very important to have a clear-cut methodology that can be checked and can be applicable for all the data sources, even the new ones. So it is very important to document the data sources, the way we treat and the way we address algorithms to be used, the tools, and also the degree of uncertainty, also version control, results, reliability and confirmation, also the field measurement. Also, we need a cascaded ecosystem, some of which, of course, produce good results, and some others of identify the terms or the minimum in terms of the metadata that should be made available, or the requirements of quality, which, of course, allows the countries to apply this gradually. Of course, the countries cannot use only the minimum and then, of course, the administrative data, the statistical data to be available, and then they can include the spatial and geographical data, the land data, all the way up to they reach to a high level of innovation. With this in mind, of course, this allows to strike a balance and allow all the countries to contribute while maintaining, of course, trust and confidence and benchmarking and comparability. Of course, this requires also the national sovereignty or the national ownership, which can help to bridge some gaps, but it cannot go beyond the national statistical ecosystem. The most rigorous one is the one that is joint. So it is very important to have global data and transparent metadata and also data that are very important to measure and review such data. Uncertainty is very important. It's very important, as I always say, that data cannot be weaker or poor because they are uncertain, but they are data because when we hide uncertainty, because when we need to see how much we can trust such data, more worse than if we know nothing about the uncertainty of such data. Thank you so much. Thank you. This leads us to talk about how we can develop the national ecosystem while maintaining their compatibility with the global ecosystem. Mr. Ian, what are the pieces of advice you would give to the national statistical offices which seek to develop or improve the environmental accounting methodologies in such a way that go in line with the system? Please, the floor is yours.
I guess I'm tempted to suggest that your finance ministry commissions a prominent academic to do a major environmental accounts report, because that's what the UK back in 2021. Now, clearly not everybody can do that, but Cambridge University's Professor Dasgupta did a review of the economics of biodiversity, which is very much well worth a read. It's quite long, but a new version's come out as a book recently. But it was a key moment for us around SIA accounts, because it helped us to boost our resources for natural capital accounts, accelerating progress on developing methods and we're now able to feed better quality data into a new inclusive income and wealth account, which the review I mentioned proposed, with colleagues bringing our natural capital data together with those for other capitals into a single measure. I think more broadly, it's really important to think about this as a long-term project. So the UK has been working on environmental and economic accounting for about 15 years, perhaps a bit longer than that. It takes time to set up and develop in a way that meets the particular needs of the country. And so that means building up relationships with treasuries, with environmental ministries, with energy ministries, and with environmental agencies, etc. It's no good to do all the hard work if your accounts aren't then going to be used. So it's great to see how to understand and to see how much departments value them and see their usefulness. And then they can provide you with the support that you need to keep developing and improving them. And there's so much in the SIA frameworks as well. So in practice, you probably do need to be a little selective. Again, thinking about the national context, think about what's most important for your country, its particular context, and what the stakeholders there are looking for. So, for example, we produce detailed accounts for our woodlands habitats in the UK every year, mainly because there's a clear demand for this from certain stakeholders. And we're planning to publish a new account for enclosed farmlands as another area of policy interest next month. Another key challenge for us is around kind of demands for granularity from stakeholders. So that might be about spatial, so data for what we have in the UK local authorities, for example, or breakdowns within industries, or indeed over time, or often all of those things. And I think sometimes giving breakdowns often favours having less frequent series. So you'll likely end up with a mix of some more frequent data and some less so. That can obviously be a challenge for policy relevance because timeliness is often a really important issue for them. Also, the UK is made up of 4 nations, so that means having data sharing arrangements in place to coordinate effectively between them. And it also raises challenges around consistency of data at the national level, where obviously there are different interests at the 4 nations level within that. And we work together to address those challenges. I think one other thing is to say that you do what you can to retain the SIA expertise that you build up. We have a great dedicated team, but we have had some periods over the time I've been at ONS where we have seen some turnover with staff moving on to great new opportunities. So it's really important for us to have really good methods guides and to make sure that we're able to transfer skills to the new generation, if you like, so that those that come after the current people working in the team are really able to easily pick up the methods that we've created to replicate those and also to go on and build on them to improve them. Also mentioned earlier, there's some really great international networks that you can tap into. There's a lot of bilateral collaborations between countries. So obviously we've shared some of our experience with GA-STAT colleagues, for example. And we also have a small international aid-funded program supporting SIA capacity building in certain African countries as well. But there's also a lot of knowledge to benefit from globally. So the annual UNECE implementation conference is held in Geneva every March, and it's a really great opportunity to learn from others and to share experiences of developing the accounts. And there's also the London group on environmental economic accounting, and that meets annually also. And I think the next meeting is in Guatemala this September, which may be of interest to some of the people on this call. Thank you.
Thank you. شكرا لك أستاذ إيان. لعل ما تفضل به الأستاذ إيان.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ayan. What Mr. Ayan has said leads us to talk about an institutional partnership, which of course leads to integration. Dr. Abdullah, from your perspective, what are the institutional arrangements to enhance the relationship between environmental data producers and users? Please, the floor is yours. Thank you for this question. To be honestly speaking, based on the international experiences across all sectors and fields and domains, the general framework for the statistics can be realized through partnerships in a more efficient way, which of course can be like knowledge-based production, where the statistical needs can be shared based on or between the statistical data producers to identify priorities and the needs, even though this model which is adopted globally, is one of the most important successful models, and we've seen the impact, but we also need to see one of the most important arrangements which help to contribute to this model to be successful. Of course, we have seen the impact at the GSTAT to build a, of course, continued partnership, between data producer and data users by work teams, of course, through which to be led by statistical offices here at the GSTAT in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, through which, of course, we can update the statistical action and the needs and requirements of the decision makers and policy makers. The good thing about this model is that it helps to achieve a good bridge between statistics and decisions, and also between data producers and data users. And I believe this can contribute a great impact on development and environment and growth. Thank you so much, Doctor. The most important challenge is how do we use such data more efficiently. Dr. Mubarak, how is it possible that coordination across all the entities, ministries, authorities to ensure that environmental data cannot be only produced but also can be used efficiently, of course, to help in decision-making policies and also follow up growth and development and enhance the results, please? Thank you so much for this question. As Dr. Abdullah said, data production of high quality requires close cooperation, coordination that is continued across all the stakeholders and relevant entities. The success of data production is not just like on the data production ability, but also on the quality of decision-making and integration across all the stakeholders and entities, and the cooperation coordination across the different entities, authorities, which helps to translate such data into decisions, more political decision and policy. Here in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, of course, the cooperation and coordination represent a very important factor in order to enhance the decision to be made and also GSTAT to play such a great role to bring all the entities and stakeholders together to produce such data. And also there is a close cooperation coordination between us, GSTAT, to produce high-quality statistical data. Thank you so much, Doctor. Speaking of the implementation, technology plays a critical role in enabling such ecosystem. Dr. Bahjat, what are the learned lessons coming from your entity to integrate technology to produce robust and rigorous data to better serve decision-making and make it more sustainable for the Kingdom of Australia? Please, the floor is yours. Thank you so much. To be honest, the learned lessons are so many, particularly given the climate and environmental situations in the Kingdom of Australia, which of course leads to different decision-making processes. We learned a lot, we have a lot of learned lessons, but again, I can summarize them in different pathways. For example, the first one is to bring together the digital data and the statistical data, and also remote sensing data and the satellite imaging and imagery, and also the spatial data or geospatial data and the drone data, and also bringing such data together along with the laboratory and the field data, which are very important. They play such a great role to ensure different environmental indicators, which of course may include like sustainability, development, growth, relating to the vegetation cover, which has a great role in placing strategies and also methodologies for the center. In addition, I can also say to translate digital data and the different measurements into data and information platform easily accessible and available, which helps to follow up and identify, of course, the most important environmental initiatives, programs, and also to make decisions more accurately. And also other learned lesson is to have such data well linked to the growth and development of the vegetation cover to ensure for example, the rehabilitation of the vegetation cover, desertification, invasive species in different areas. Different, of course, examples we can talk about, such as the drones, for example, to follow and to monitor the vegetation cover. Also have different satellite images, of course, for the indicators. Also, remote sensing helped greatly and largely for overgrazing areas, of course, and also to organize and regulate grazing across the different vegetation cover. The digital cameras placed and also the thermal sensors placed across different regions in order to follow up the vegetation cover and the status of the vegetation cover, and also producing a high quality spatial and geospatial data. These are the most important lessons. Thank you. Thank you, Doctor. At the end, I have a question for you. I hope that each would be able to answer this question. If you are requested to prioritize one action to enhance the supporting environmental data for sustainability over the upcoming 3 years, what is one action you would prioritize? I'll start with you, Ms. Sally. It is not easy, of course, to identify one action. If I would choose one action to prioritize, the first gap is the institutional coordination cooperation. I believe the UNEP, for example, it would be great to help countries to build well-coordinated and regulated and coordinated, integrated national ecosystem, to have like rigorous metadata, the data source, and also have like good quality data, of course. This is very important for everything to be prioritized. Dr. Bahjat, the same question, please. To prioritize one action to enhance the environmental data over the upcoming 3 years. This is a very important question, particularly relating to the initiatives and the current challenges. I believe to work on a national environmental platform for statistical data to coordinate and streamline and standardize the data, and also to contribute to have like the ability for data production to have fast track decisions and to be wisely, of course, taken. Dr. Ayan, what is one action you would prioritize to enhance the environmental data over the upcoming 3 years? So what is one action you prioritize?
As previous speaker had said, so there's so many actions to consider here, and I think there's potentially a range of interesting challenges for filling in environmental data gaps that have been identified in last month's report from the UN high-level expert group on beyond GDP in the environment space, for example. But thinking about the system for environmental economic accounting now, I think it's probably for us about quality improvement to ensure that our government colleagues can have complete confidence in our statistics as a robust basis for policy making, and so that it can help to deliver on policy objectives. So I mentioned earlier some of the quality improvements that we published today in our environmental accounts, but our natural capital accounts are currently classed as being in development. So we're also looking towards the official statistics status, that I mentioned earlier for those two, both because quality in itself is vitally important, but also because some of the data that we create in that space will be feeding into the natural resources depletion measure in the system of national accounts, which will need to develop over the next few years, which makes an even stronger case for robustness, so it's being used in that context. So I could go on with many others, but I think that quality improvement is a really key one for us. Thank you.
شكرا لك. دكتور مبارك.
شكرا لك.
Dr. Mubarak, the only thing is to standardize and unify the data used in the indicators at the national level and also the global level as well. There are different international data and indicators produced by different entities, but again, with different methodologies adopted. What we need is to standardize and unify such data to be produced and indicators. Dr. Abdullah, thank you so much. I agree with the development issues referred to by the other panelists. I would like to add one more thing: the importance of using technologies particularly AI, when it comes to analyzing, standardizing, unifying the data sources, and also benefit from the different data sources and resources in order to enhance the quality and accuracy of such indicators and environmental statistical data. Thank you so much, Doctor. Your Excellencies, distinguished audience, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for your engagement and participation in this rich panel discussion, and thanks also go to our speakers. Our panel discussion today emphasized that achieving sustainability is no longer based on data availability, but also on the quality of such data, the development of methodologies, and also benefit from the state-of-the-art technologies, and also translating them into knowledge that support policies, decisions, and also enhance partnerships across different entities and stakeholders. Equally important, the panel discussion shows that data is a very important tool to better understand the environmental challenges and also measuring progress and development for the SDGs. At the end, the future of sustainability requires more reliable data, more efficient application, and more cooperation and coordination between data production and producers and data users. Thank you so much for your intention, engagement, and participation. Looking forward more and more to our event for the Riyadh, the way to Riyadh.